All right, Game of Thrones is back. Woohoo! You guys excited?
Woo!
Yeah.
I didn't sound very excited at all.
I mean, you just asked us like out of the blue. We weren't ready for a response.
That's the thing, though. With Game of Thrones, you always got to be ready,
Do you
right?
really?
You do. That's like the number one rule. Always be ready.
Game
or else-
of Thrones.
Yeah, Game of
Rule
Thrones.
one,
Always
be ready.
It's a very
Are you talking
clear
about-
set of rules.
Are you talking
to
about
get the
in
Iron
the
Throne.
Game of Thrones, or are you talking about IRL?
Both of those things.
Okay.
In the game, all the characters need to be ready, or else they're going to get an axe to the head or a dragon glass dagger to the throat. And in real life, you got to be ready because you never know what's going to happen.
Because you might
So
have an
it's-
axe to the head.
Yeah. Or,
Or a
dragon
dagger
blast
to the
your
throat. Yeah.
both of those options. So we're here. We're going to be talking about the first episode of Game of Thrones, just because it premiered, and we really like Game of Thrones, and we like talking to each other. So we thought we'd have a discussion about the episode and what we liked, what we didn't like, and what we hope that this season turns out to be going forward. So the big overarching question, the big kahuna fish burger question, did you like the episode? 20 months of waiting, and episode 1, Winterfell.
I think it was okay. I think this happens every time with Game of Thrones, in my opinion. Like, there's a lot of hype around the season, and then the first episode comes out, and pretty much nothing happens. It's, of course, it's all set up and all that, but just like the hype of the season never matches up with how good the first episode is.
Yeah, there was
Which
no
is
way.
understandable.
There was no way the hype of this first episode could match. Like, unless, like, if the very first episode had the Night King, it opened up and Winterfell's destroyed and the Night King standing over the bodies of, like, everybody, there was, like, no way it could match that hype unless that happened. But the first episodes are generally like that, right? They're like, they're setup ones.
I usually think the first, 3 or 4 episodes. Usually the action doesn't start until the very... What is it? Usually
So, like,
the
the
second to last episode?
Episode
Yeah,
9,
yeah. The second to last episode is always the climactic one.
But now there's no
And-
time for that.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
they wasted a lot of time in this episode, in my opinion.
it looks like oh, go ahead, Kobe.
I don't think sure, it was a setup episode, but I really liked how it was really in parallel to the very first episode of the series itself. There were so many callbacks and like similar shots and events that happened that from like that first episode, I was like, oh man, this is pretty cool. So I liked it for that aspect.
I think it was a little too, fan callback. Like, oh, remember this guy? Oh, remember that guy? Oh, remember this kid we haven't seen since, season 3 who disappeared? It's like, I don't need
What
that
kid
in
are you
my
talking
final...
about?
Yeah, what
the
kid was that?
What's that kid's name? I forget his name. The Robert Baratheon's bastard.
Gendry,
Oh.
he was such a vital part of last season because he ran that marathon to get back to to the wall and send a raven. So
I mean, yeah,
he
those aren't really callbacks. Those are just characters that are in the show.
Yeah, but...
I think Kobe's more talking about there's a shot with the
kid
what are they
climbing
called?
even at the very beginning,
Yeah.
the kid climbing
Oh,
the
that
tree,
guy?
which is like
That was
what
Bran did
Bran
when
did in the first episode.
when he saw
Robert
Baratheon's army come
Baratheon
in.
arrive. Yeah.
And now it's the Unsullied coming in, so it's another monarch
I was
marching
just
into
thinking,
winter.
who the hell is this kid climbing all over Winterfell? He doesn't belong there.
His name is Bob Bark. And
Bob
he's
of House Bark, and their
Of House
sigil is
Bark.
a tree that grows and has its vines in every nook and cranny of the kingdom of Westeros. So don't knock on
so
those
that's
barks.
why that's why he's all over Winterfell.
Yeah, that's why he's all over those trees.
all over those walls.
Yeah, that's basically the house of the Three-Eyed Raven. In the Game of Thrones Telltale game, there is a house called House Ironwood, which is pretty cool.
I never played that. It was a fun game.
All about the Ironwood. Yeah, it was pretty good. Telltale is shut down now, so there will never be a sequel.
They shut down. Oh, they did shut down. That's a bummer.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but yeah, that was a good game. I liked it.
The Ironwood. Are they better than the Ironborn?
Yeah, they're not dicks. Basically, you basically play as the Starks, but not really the Starks. It's literally just the same plot point. Like one bastard goes to the wall, and then there's one of the daughters goes to the south and is in King's Landing.
You're spoiling, man. Not
You're
that
spoiling
it
the
matters.
game.
No, these aren't spoilers. These are just general plot point. The real spoiler would be if I told you what happens and who dies.
That they were all in a snow globe at the end.
They're all in a snow globe. It was all a dream by
all a dream.
Ghost. Ghost was dreaming it all.
Yeah. Well,
So-
were you guys expecting a lot to happen anyway? Like, I guess it's
No.
pretty.
I really wasn't.
No.
I guess I knew it was going to be. It had to be because like you just had so much setup that you had to do. I didn't think it was going to end. You know, it's not like the Battle of Winterfell was going to happen this episode. I didn't think that, which I think I think some people did. But you know, you needed this one because you needed to establish the dynamic of these characters. You had the reunions that we were, you know, that we've been wanting for a while, and you needed, I guess, to build off the Jon Snow Daenerys relationship, which I'm actually hoping they don't do. I hope like this, like their romantic excursion through Dragon Wonderland is the only thing we get of that, because you know, I guess I just still don't buy their relationship very much.
Yeah, it was kind of like they got together because they're good looking, and also the heads of their certain factions. I didn't. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, isn't that a plus? You know.
If you're good looking and you're the head, that in
And you're
that
the head of
world,
faction.
yeah,
Yeah, totally, yeah. But I agree. I mean, like the last Jon Snow's last girlfriend was a wildling, and now it's like the Queen Targaryen. I guess they're both the same. That they're both fierce. Maybe that's what Jon Snow likes.
They both love caves.
Fierce woman.
Both of them said the same thing about a cave. Ygritte said when they were in the cave and just like, we could stay here. Or I think her last dying words or something was, I wish we would have stayed in that cave. I think that was Ygritte's last word. And then Daenerys said to him, hey, there's this cave. We could stay here for 1,000 years. And then Jon Snow's like, hey, you remind me of my dead girlfriend. And then they made out.
I remember those caves.
Remember those caves, which was, and that was a weird line. I think I want to call back to that line. When Daenerys said, we could stay here for 1,000 years. I've never once got the, and I know it was like a joke and it was like a romantic jest, but I never once got the feeling that Daenerys was a character that would like joke about giving everything up and retiring somewhere else. You know, like stop fighting.
That's actually like the first thing she's ever just said where she wasn't like a dick or something.
Yeah, you don't like Daenerys. You want to talk about that?
I haven't liked her for the past couple of seasons. I mean, I used to be a big like Daenerys fan.
Mother of Dragons, Breaker of Chains.
Yeah, Mother of Dragons, yo. But now, for the past couple of seasons, everything she's been saying is so snide and so...
She's
snarky, and it's just like, oh, your sister doesn't like me. Well, because you're being a bitch. Like, yeah. Why don't you show some and you know, Jeff and I were having this discussion after we watched the show, and you know, she's had a hard life. She's basically learned how to rule by watching the Dothraki and the
people in Marine.
Yeah, people in Marine and all the slaves she's freed in Estos, but I don't know. She people look up to her as a good leader, and is she a good leader?
Yes, that's the question.
She's less, I guess, inspiring as she was, and I think the problem with how she's portrayed now, like in this new season and I guess last season too, I think for me comes down to two things. It's like, one, it's because the only final interesting thing you can take with her character is comparing her to her father. So you have to have her walk the line between dictator and benevolent queen in order to be like, ooh, is she going to be like her father or is she not? Is she destined to you know, burn people alive? You know, that's that sort of thing. That's like the only way to make that interesting. But unfortunately, the byproduct of that is making her seem, you know, like unlikable, and we root for her less. And the other aspect of it is it's fun seeing her be all queenly and superior to a bunch of no-name random people like across the ocean and like Marine. But it's really difficult to watch her do that against already established characters who we already know and care about. And so when she says like, when she has that thing like, I'm the rightful queen, and like when she's saying that to like, you know, the Starks or anybody in the North, we're just like, well, we've watched 7 seasons of these other characters' stories, and it's like, we don't like how another character's lording themselves over them. So I think to me those are like the two problems in how she's represented.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably intentional.
I know. I even agreed after. I know.
Yeah, it's totally intentional.
But it's just one of our favorite characters is
on the dark side.
Yeah, and I know it's a shame because we all like her. And I want her. Well, spoilers. I want her to rule the Iron
Spoilers.
Throne.
That's
I'm
a
just
spoiler.
What? Do you have ties to
Spoilers for my
writers?
own thoughts.
Spoilers for your
I
own
want
thoughts.
her to be on the Iron Throne, but not anymore. Like she's, I used to, you always rooted for her. These past 6, I guess. Past 6,
7. What
6,
season
7,
are we on?
We're on 8.
Yeah.
I'm not sure
All
about
right.
last season, but we were rooting for her, and now I don't know if I want her.
So would you prefer Jon? I guess that's the big debate that's going to come down for these final 6 episodes is who should sit on the Iron Throne. Her, if none of them die, which I think, Jeff and I had the discussion where I think Jon's going to die, and he
What?
thinks,
I
yeah.
think Daenerys is gonna die.
Oh, okay.
What do you think?
Which one of them's gonna die, or who do I think is gonna die?
Both. Well,
Both?
actually,
Well,
yeah,
would that be the same
both.
thing? Yeah, both.
I think Daenerys is gonna die.
Okay.
That's why
And-
they're making her unlikable,
and
that's
Jon
why they're
is
making
gonna be the
Jon
king?
more likable.
And
Because,
do you think
I
Jon will be
think-
king?
Yeah, I think so.
So you think Jon? You do think Jon will be in the Iron Throne? See, I think Daenerys is gonna die, and then Jon's gonna disappear.
And who's gonna be on the Iron Throne? Cersei?
I think the Iron Throne's gonna blow up.
They already did. They already blew up.
Everyone's
They can't
gonna
blow
take
up
the
that
swords from the Iron Throne, and it's just gonna become
Yeah.
naked chair.
It's gonna be no chair. Everyone's gonna King's Landing will be.
Everyone
A
will rule
ruin.
themselves.
Yeah, that's what I actually think is gonna happen.
I think, I think Jon's going to die in battle, and Daenerys is going to be. At least I thought that. Now, after this first episode, now I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah. So what I was thinking was because there was that when Sam revealed to Jon who he was, he asked a very important question. He was like, because he was all pissed off that Daenerys basically burned his family, as anyone would be, and so he was like, Jon,
Sam.
you've spared thousands of people even though they didn't obey you, and he was all like, well, you would willingly give up your crown to save people, but would she do that? So now I feel like it's setting up for a conflict between Jon and Daenerys.
Yeah.
And so what I think is going to happen is Daenerys is going to die somehow, and that's going to solve that problem. So everyone that was loyal to Daenerys can now just be loyal to Jon because he's the other Targaryen. And then Jon can bring it on home and take over King's Landing or free everyone or whatever. I don't know.
I
I
mean,
just don't think that's a. I understand that the ending's got to be bittersweet and all that, but it's just like after all we've been through for Daenerys, I just can't see that being her ending after
Yeah.
all we've been through for her. That
I was
will
just
not be
about,
how it ends.
I was just about to say that, and I know Game of Thrones is kind of notorious for this,
Yeah, that's what it's about.
but
Killing
It
characters you
was
love.
no, it
Wait.
was not after season 4 with Oberyn.
Yeah,
There's not
sure.
one big moment of death or shock.
And
Since
this
then.
is the perfect time to do it
it's
again.
kind of like a cop out, I think, if she does die, and that's how they settle the war of the throne.
Targaryens.
Yeah.
I could see that. That does sound a bit too neat, but I mean, we were talking about how Daenerys used to be like the beloved character of the show, and she's kind of become, at least to you, she's become kind of like the opposite of that, which is I think interesting because there are other characters that we used to hate, like Jaime, and now he's like,
now we just want Jaime to be happy.
yeah, now he's
Oh
like a
my
super popular
God.
character.
Jamie's gonna rule the Iron Throne.
No, he can't. Well, I don't know.
I had an excellent theory that was all my theory 100% and nobody else's, including not Jake H's over at Anime Dumpster Dive, that Jamie's actually going to become the new Knights Commander, the new the leader of the Wall, the Night's Watch, Lord Commander. That's what it's going to be.
Okay, you first confused me. I thought you said like you're going for the Night King. I was like,
He's gonna be
what?
the new Night King.
He's the Night King now. But yeah, so Jaime's kind of gone that arc where he started off as a very bad character, and now he's good. And now Daenerys, it makes sense that she would be the opposite. And if she ends up dying, I think that just makes sense because if she becomes like the Mad Queen kind of thing. I mean, what do you guys think? Would she give up her crown to save people, to save thousands of people?
To save thousands of people? Yeah, I think she would.
You think she would submit all her power to Jon being the rightful heir?
Yeah, but I just can't see a situation where that would be where Jon would be like, "Hey, you know what? I want this power instead of you, so give it to me," and then we go from there. I just don't see the setup around that situation
Yeah,
being anywhere feasible.
You say she to submit to save thousands of people, but I don't know the scenario that would fit that, framework. So I don't know.
But
Yeah.
you do think she would do it? Tori?
Do I think she would do it?
She would give up her crown to save the kingdom somehow. Yes, I think she would. If
I
the
think-
alternative was death for everybody, yes.
I think she would, but I don't think she would at first. I think she would kind of fight it off and be able, because that seems to be what they've been steering her towards, is that she's super blunt and super like action, like no or yes or let's do this, let's burn them all. But then it would take like Tyrion or somebody to convince her otherwise. Which I don't know if that justifies her as a good ruler or not, but I think she would in the very end.
I don't know, man. I guess we have to wait and see.
Mm-hmm.
What about other things? What about away from all the just, I guess, the endless struggle, which I'm sure will become more revealed as later episodes go on. What about everything else that happened in this episode? What about let's go over to King's Landing for a second. Cersei's storyline and Euron Greyjoy, the rock and roll pirate. You know,
That guy is so fucking stupid.
Yeah.
I do not give a fuck about this character. Like, they introduced him, what, last season or something, right?
2 seasons ago.
Yeah.
2 seasons?
But
Two
he was
seasons ago.
he was completely different in season 6 than he was in season 7. In season 6, he came in and he killed Greyjoy's father. And he was like this normal kind of dude, but he's, who's a bad guy. But then in season 7, when he came in and like introduced himself to the Queen, he was this version of the character, which is like he was like this rock and roll, like
Hey, I'm gonna fuck the queen.
the Queen, dude. Yeah, we're horrible at Euron Greyjoy impressions.
Yeah,
But,
that was good.
but
you
they,
should be Euron.
I mean, it's and they totally like redid his character, and I don't really care about, and I don't know what his role is going to be now. Like, I really thought it was Theon's role to like take him out in the struggle to save Yara, but that plot line wrapped up like in a blink of an eye.
Yeah. He's going to Winterfell, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Yara and everyone else is going back to
They're going back to the
Iron
island.
Isles.
Iron Islands.
Which I wonder if that's foreshadowing, because like, okay, so if the Battle of Winterfell, because it seems like the previews for next episode seems like the battle is like here, and it looks like episode 3 is going to be the battle from that trailer.
The setup.
Which means that if they can't win, and then if they win or lose, it seems like they would lose maybe, and then go back down to King's Landing and maybe go to the Iron Isles with Yara. But I guess, but so I don't know if that was foreshadowing or if we're ever going to see Yara again.
No, that's a good possibility. I didn't even consider that, but I guess I'd. So yeah, I mean, the Battle of Winterfell. Do you think they're gonna win or not? I guess let's start there.
I don't know. It's
So I
don't know,
think,
man.
and I've kind of have my thoughts on this too, or I'll explain later. I think it's gonna wrap up and they're gonna win.
In one episode?
I don't know about one, maybe 1.5.
It has to be one episode though, because they don't have time for another episode. That's gonna be one of those like movie length ones.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Yeah.
I can agree with that. Movie length, they wrap it up in one episode because it seems like the last thing that they're going to deal with is who's going to take the Iron Throne, whether it's Cersei or Jon Snow or Daenerys. Who's going to be the last person on that throne? And I think that's how they're going to wrap up the season, which I think is weird because I think the bigger threat is than all the whites and
that's
the
the whole
Walkers.
that's the whole point of the show itself is that these people are infighting with each other when they're not focused on the greater threat. And that's been the point of the show from the beginning. And for it to be like to wrap up the Night's Watch at like episode 3 and then just focus on back to human politics seems a little bit of a just counter message to like what the show was about. So my wild theory, here's what's going to happen. So big battle at Winterfell, and they're going to wipe out all the rights, bad guys, and most of the and some White Walkers, right? But then who's not there is the Night King himself, because he is down in King's Landing trying to broker a deal or some sort with Cersei, and then him and Cersei team up. And
Wait.
yeah,
The Night King is gonna talk to Cersei.
Yep.
And come up with a deal.
not a deal where it's just like you can rule the this subservient land and just help, you just have to rule under me.
Does he even talk?
We don't know. He could. Why wouldn't he? He seems anatomically like a human.
Yeah.
The children, and he before he turned into the Night King, he was a normal dude. So why wouldn't he be able to talk?
I mean, he'd have to I guess, go around Winterfell go through all these lands. But then again, he
doesn't know anything about the politics of what's going on right now.
He doesn't give a fuck.
He doesn't give a fuck. He's going to go down there and be like,
know
you're the
what
leader of
King's
this land?
Landing is?
I'm sure he does. He seems like, I think he's more knowledgeable than we think. We just think he's like this brute force. And I think the best way, in order to give him some agency, instead of just like this talkless terror who's just trying to destroy everything, if he actually has a plan and he actually has a goal in mind, that's my ultimate want list, that he's not just this silent brute force just threatening to destroy everything, that he actually has a plan of what he wants. So that's why I think that he's going to make a deal with Cersei somehow. I'm calling it right now.
Do you guys subscribe to the Bran is the Night King theory?
No, not here. You know what? I think that's a very viable option for them to go in the books. I just don't think they're going to do it in the show. I just don't think they have time for that.
So I'm not very familiar with the theory. I've heard it a lot, but I haven't looked into it.
So my best explanation for it is because it was revealed that Bran can go back in time and kind of like affect the past and stuff. He like goes back in time and like wargs into like the Night King or something.
Yeah, it says,
and like that's not the best explanation, but
it's like a weird thing. And yeah, I don't know. I don't buy into that theory, I guess, as much. It makes sense that I guess that about why the Night King, it would like explain some plot holes in terms of like what he's doing, taking his time all the time. Like if he's specifically waiting and he actually knows what's going to happen. So that's why he seems to be like, that's why it seemed like, okay, back to season 7 when they were trapped, those 7 people on the island and they didn't attack, and then the dragon came and they killed the dragon, resurrected the dragon. Like that makes much more sense from a story standpoint if the Night King knew that the dragon was coming from the beginning. It just gives it a much clearer explanation. So it's like if he knew it before, because Bran knows everything, and when he travels back, he becomes the Night King, yada yada yada. So I think that makes sense. But again, I just don't think the show can afford to go that route.
Yeah, that's true. It doesn't take way too much explanation.
I could see it from the perspective of, we don't have enough time to make up such a convoluted theory happen. But at the same time, the whole thing where Bran goes back in time and affects Hodor from the past, I feel like that's significant. Like that's
but that was like 2 seasons ago, and we haven't seen anything from that since. Like barely even not like a mention of it, like whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. And Bran has kind of become like this weird like background nuisance where everyone just feels uncomfortable with him. I don't think they're gonna just throw him in here and like
that makes Bran like the most important character of the story. And I think if Bran, I don't think Bran's a lot of people's favorite character.
Yeah.
I mean, people's most important characters don't necessarily make the biggest moves all the time.
But I think that's what they're pushing now with these later seasons. So everyone's favorite character does something bold and grand.
And off. Yeah. What about... go ahead.
With the whole Night King going to King's Landing thing, I can understand it from the perspective of like, hey, why would you build up to this big white battle and then not have it be part of the climax thing?
Yeah.
But at the same time, this whole season, like, a lot of the big moments have been about the interpolitics and the relationship between all these different factions in Westeros. So I do think it's fitting that it would return to that as the ending, because, these whites are just like a big nameless force. And I think if the ending were like completely devoid of that, like if they defeated that threat early on, I think you could have a setup where there are consequences of that war on the current politics of Westeros, and still have it just be about Westeros, where the Battle of the Whites did have some effect on all that, and have it be fitting because, well, the story has been all about these characters like infighting and politicking all the time.
Well, I kind of like your... I don't like your theory, Coby, but I kind of like where you're going. I kind of like where you're going, so I'm gonna modify it. What if the battle at Winterfell, they're fighting with all the whites and the White Walkers, and they basically conclude that they have succeeded and that they have won, but the army is not as big as they thought it was, and they're like, oh man, that was easy. But it turns out the whole army is like traveling on the icy water because now they don't have to go through land. They can, it's all frozen and stuff.
Sure,
Winter's
it's
everywhere.
winter.
Yeah, and then they attack the South and King's Landing and everybody else. I'm not gonna say that they're gonna Cersei and the Ice King. What is that guy's name?
The Night King.
The Night King. They're gonna make a deal or anything. But I like your plan that he might make a turnaround and just start attacking the South, so he doesn't have to go through the North. And he has those people that can, I'm assuming, that can warg as well and maybe see through other animals. So, and he could probably warg. Maybe he can warg the dragon. Wouldn't that be sick? And then he can like see everything.
He does, doesn't he? I imagine. Yes. I imagine he does. We don't know the Night King's power.
No, we don't. So.
Boom. Actually, sorry. I think wrong. I think my theory still stands. because if you look at this first episode with Cersei, this was all about how she has no more allies. That's why she decided to bed Euron, because, she had that moment just like, nah, screw you. And then she walks away and she thinks about it just like, well, Euron's actually the only one I got left. So they're painting her as someone without allies and desperate. So if the Night King comes to her and says like, hey, let's make a deal. I want to rule. You can rule the ashes if I rule everything else. She's going to be like, yes, I'm going to do that because I've lost everything now.
Like,
I think that works for her character. Yeah.
And then they're gonna fuck.
Everyone wants to see that.
Ew, I don't know.
They didn't even show a sex scene between Euron and Cersei.
Are you? I don't want to see Euron having sex.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Why would you want to see that? Why are you sad about that?
I mean,
I just think he's dirty and he smells like fish because he's just a Greyjoy. Because I think all Greyjoys just stink.
He does look smelly, and also I don't give a fuck about him.
I hope he dies horribly.
But Bronn gets some titty action.
You know what I learned? I think I read that scene itself was actually shot for the season 7 finale, but just wasn't aired and was saved for this episode instead.
Oh.
Okay.
And I have a problem with this scene just because, one, I think it just seems like a way just to get Bronn up north. Like it doesn't make any other sense otherwise, and because too, it's like if Cersei's gonna ask somebody to like assassinate both Jaime and Tyrion, don't ask someone who's spent obviously a ton of time with them, who seems like that they're really close friends.
Why don't you go ask them like your loyal zombie mountain dude, like much more loyal than Bronn, who's been like best friends with Tyrion and somewhat with Jaime as well.
Yeah, who spent like whole seasons with them, so it doesn't make any sense. Unless the only thing that I like, how I love my wild theories, that crossbow that he gave Bronn is actually a bomb that's going to detonate somehow when he's in close vicinity there. Like Bronn's going to aim the gun at him, not going to do it, and then he's like, oh, and then it's going to start beeping and whirring, and then because Qyburn's a genius, and then Bronn's going to be like, oh fuck, and then it blows up.
That's pretty anachronistic, isn't it?
Sure.
See, I thought Cersei, when I first saw the crossbow, was gonna ask him to kill a dragon. Like that makes more sense.
I would ask Bronn to do that. Bronn was like he's the only one who hit a dragon.
He almost killed a dragon.
Yeah, but to me, it just seems like a way to get Bronn up north.
Yeah, for him to be a part of the story.
For him to be at that battle, I would be like, no.
You said you heard, was it verified or was it theory that was part of the finale?
I read it somewhere that scene was, I think it was like Entertainment Weekly or something that said like that scene was actually for the season 7 finale, and they just didn't have time to show it.
Okay.
So Bronn going to the north.
Bronn's going to the north.
A part of the fight against the Whites, I guess.
Fight against the Whites. Favorite moments of the episode? Anything that really stood out for you guys?
I guess the dragon flying. That was cool.
Oh, that was weird.
It was
romantic.
romantic.
Like Jon riding a dragon?
Riding Rhaegar.
His dad. His dad dragon.
His dad dragon. One of those should be his dragon. I don't know. It was just the whole scene between them when they were flirting with each other was just so awkward. It just made me uncomfortable. And then afterwards they started making out, and that made me more uncomfortable. And I'm just like, I don't want to see this.
And the dragons were watching.
That made them uncomfortable too. Like
they're probably like, guys, you guys don't know about this, but you're related.
They could smell them.
Yeah, they could smell. They're like, ugh.
Yeah.
I liked Sam actually a lot in this episode. I don't really like Sam a whole lot. Like his emotion during the scene of when Daenerys tells him that she murdered his father and brother, which was funny in that dark humor sort of way. It's like, well, at least my brother's there. And it's like, oh, well, awkward.
That's true.
But he did a lot with that scene. Just him processing that emotion was, I thought was just really good on his part. So actually, I thought Sam was one of my favorites of that episode.
Yeah, that scene would have been better if he could actually shed a tear. I was looking at him and I was like, come on, you can act, you can act.
I mean, he's probably upset and sad, but he hasn't seen his family in a long time, and I know he liked his brother, but
yeah, his father was a dick.
Yeah, his father was a dick, so it's hard to generate tears when half the family that died is a dick and the other half is okay.
I imagine that scene went beforehand of just like, because Daenerys is having a real shit time in Winterfell, right? She's going really bad, and Jory goes, "Hey, I know how I can score some brownie points with her. I'm gonna take her to the man who saved my life, and then he's gonna really love me." And then Jorah's like, "Daenerys is gonna love me after this because she's gonna see how cool I am." And then he takes her into the room, and then she's like, "Oh, this is the man who you murdered your father and his brother. Now he hates you and question everything about his queen." So that sucks.
See, I thought when forgot his name. Sam asked Daenerys, "I need a pardon." I thought he was gonna say pardon because didn't he just walk out on the Night's Watch? Like,
no, but he didn't walk out. No, because he went to be a maester. And
yeah,
that's like,
he's
get
not
you out of
supposed
it.
to be there.
Yeah, he ran away with Gilly.
Yeah,
that part is bad. He ran away from the Citadel. But you don't know the rules of the Citadel. Maybe that's a loophole. If you go to be a maester, you can run away from that. Okay.
No. You can't just go on and do your own thing. That's totally against the Night's Watch. You have to be a part of the
Night's Watch is dead. It's the only one. They're a crumbling organization, and they need Jaime. They need Jaime to lead them. Except for Dolores motherfucking Ed, who I love more than anything.
Why do you like him?
He's just so funny, and I love him. He's great, and he started out as such a sarcastic and straightforward, blunt bastard, and now he's the leader of the Night's Watch, and he's hilarious. And I love every scene he's in.
So what was going on in that scene? Were they at the castle or something?
No, they were at the
Umber house.
Kids, yeah, the kids' house. What is that called?
Which in the awesome
Umber?
Yeah, so the Umber house. So I guess in that awesome opening credits is that first castle we saw. So it's like halfway between the Wall and Winterfell.
All right, I was confused because I was like, weren't they just at the Wall?
Yeah, when they first walk in, there's flags, red flags, and I was like, oh, that's not the Night's Watch.
Yeah.
It really, first of all, and like I get it why that scene had to happen, but it really sucks for Jon to be like, Umber, go get your men, when it seems like it's obviously in the path of the White Walkers.
Yeah. And it reveals that they have no men.
Yeah.
Even the kid. They have no kid either.
No kid.
It seems like they're all dead and they all rose up to be, Night's Watchman people.
They're all White Walkers.
White Walkers, and now they're behind him, and somehow they give a half-ass explanation of just like, if we can double time, we can go like around them and get to Winterfell before them.
Yeah.
So it looks like they're all going to be at the place next episode.
Yeah. Skip ahead. What was your favorite moment, Tori?
I think my favorite moment, and that's just because I've been waiting for it for a long time, was when Arya got to see Jon Snow again.
Oh yeah, that was sweet.
Yeah.
I laughed when Jon was like, "Have you ever used this, like the sword?" And like, "Ha, she's crazy now."
Yeah, he doesn't know that she's a crazy assassin, huh?
I'm assuming she does, because she's probably spoke to Sansa a little bit, maybe. I don't know.
The thing that I want to does Arya and Sansa know that Jon is a Targaryen?
No.
Because Arya, when she hugged him, and then Jon was like, "You're your family," or like, "I'm your family," or "We're family," then Arya's like, "I hope you remember that." I didn't know if that was because she knew, or if that's just like, wink, wink. This is really going to be a problem in the next episode.
No, I thought it was just referring to that they seem that he's not picking the family in the north over Daenerys and these strangers, and
also because he's a bastard.
He's not part of the family.
Yeah, well, that's
Bran needs to tell more people.
That's part of his identity, is that he's a bastard, and kind of never really fit into the Starks. But she's just reaffirming that, yeah, you're part of the Starks, kid.
Yeah. I like the part where Cersei was just like, "No elephants." I really wanted elephants.
Yeah, they spent all their money on the dragons.
Yeah, I would have.
Yeah, no
I wish
CGI
you would have
budget
said
for
something
elephants.
like, "Well, you didn't give me elephants. You lost what 6 dudes on the way here. I want the money back." Like,
That's where I really hated Euron's character. Like, that was too over the... Like, I get it that he's, like, a scummy dude, but I really hated that line. It was just like, they cheated at dice. Or I cheated. Who knows?
Or you cheated.
Somebody
Maybe
cheated.
we all cheated.
Yeah, it's just like, come on. Like, I get it, you're a scummy dude, but, like, that was unnecessary.
Yeah, that joke lasted too long.
And it showed that this Golden Company is supposed to be the most feared mercenaries ever, but I guess they can be taken out by... Oh, I was about to say taken out by Theon, but I guess Yara wasn't on the Golden Company's boat, that they were on more Greyjoy's boat.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the eunuchs that he travels with. Because they weren't wearing the golden armor.
Yeah, so they were just normal dudes.
Just regular dudes.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, the Golden Company seems pretty disposable.
I just don't know what their final... It's like they're the final battle? Like...
Yeah, we're gonna be versed a bunch of strangers that were paid to be here.
The ultimate big bad of the series, Richard Strickland. Like that one dude. It's like, oh, good. And his army of mute men.
Yeah, when I first showed Euron with the guy who, I don't know his name, the guy who's the head of the
Strickland.
Golden... Oh, is that really his name?
Yeah,
I
his
thought
name
you
is
were just
Strickland.
making up a name.
No, I don't know if his first name's Richard, but I know his last name is Strickland.
Well, when Strickland was shot with the scene with him standing next to Euron and the boats are coming in, I was like, oh, look, it's our favorite character. It's
This
Bob.
Bob.
Oh.
Very important new
Strickland.
character.
Yeah. Goodness.
Yeah.
I'm glad he's back.
What do you want from the second episode then?
I
You
don't
sound
know if
so
I want to
bored
ask
with it.
anything because I'm not going to get it. It's just going to be a setup for the next episode, which is what I really want. I just want to watch that battle.
I really just want to see how it's going to play out. If Jon Snow tells Daenerys that, hey, we're related and I am the true heir to the throne. Like, I really just want to see how that's going to play out.
Yeah, does he? I hope he doesn't keep it a secret because we don't have fucking time for this. I understand the episode had to do it because it had to build their relationship like a little bit before they dropped the bombshell. But I really wanted when Jon rolled up to town and gave Bran a hug and he was like kind of talking with Sansa with Daenerys right in front of him, and then Bran's like, "Stop it, we don't have time for this." I just wanted him to drop the bombshell like literally right there. That he's just like, "You're a Targaryen. You're fucking your aunt." It's really weird. You're the rightful king of the Seven Kingdoms, and then drop that bombshell live grenade there and see what happens.
Do you think Bran watches them? Like you just said, oh, you fucked your aunt. Do you think he's watching them like?
Yeah.
On the sidelines in his visions.
Yep.
He sees everything.
He sees
a lot of people.
He's experienced everything.
I have one more question for you guys.
Sure.
Will they make a joke about Jon and Dany fucking even though they're related?
Who would comment about that? I bet Tyrion is going to make a witty comment about that. I think Tyrion would when he finds out. Just like, oh, your aunt. Incest has been it's not the worst thing I've heard of. Like, he'll be like, it's not the worst thing because I say, who's mine to speak? My siblings fuck each other. I think he'll comment about it. I don't know about everybody else.
I think Daenerys doesn't take lightly to jokes about her, so I don't think she'll allow it. The one thing I don't know if this is a joke or not. It's kind of weird, but the very first thing we see is Jaime walking into Winterfell, and he looks at Bran because he pushed him. Back in season 1.
End of the first episode of the first season.
Talk about that.
I think they have, just because I think that's what I said at the very kind of the beginning of this. That this episode was very parallel to the first episode of the series. Like that first episode ends with Jaime pushing Bran out, and then this episode ends with them looking at each other. So I think, and when Bran's like, "I'm waiting here for an old friend," I think because he's the only one who can convince people not to just slit Jaime's throat immediately and be like, "Look what you did to my brother." And Bran's gonna be like, "Well, I'm not really Bran anymore," and then be like, "Shut up, Robo Bran."
And then they'll punch him.
Yeah, he's kind of like this weird, like, one for all trick pony. Like, he could just be like, "Oh, everyone hates Jaime. Oh, you could spare him of all the good things he's done because let me see it in my visions that he's so good and Peter Baelish is bad because of all these things I've seen in my visions, and they must be true. And it's just like they use him just to verify everything. It's just
they should use him to verify where the Night King is.
Yeah, or more important things like
does he watch John and Danny fuck?
Exactly. I was just about to say that.
There's more important things, damn it.
That's like
it's just gonna be a weird conversation.
You know, Brian is basically hooked up to Game of Thrones version of Pornhub.
Yeah, I guess
he can
he
just
is.
be like, all right, what do I want to
Well,
see?
okay, we can even go further than that because George R. R. Martin wrote all this, so he's like hooked up to all of his like everything, like all of his fantasies and everything.
You guys are taking Game of Thrones and making it way too sexual.
Yeah, he is. He broke the fourth wall, and now he's George R. R. Martin.
Game of Thrones is not just about sex, you guys. Bran has more important things to do. The Night King is coming.
What you just said was false. Game of Thrones was built on sex.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's why they had to show a titty scene, because if they didn't have a titty scene in the first episode of the last season, people would have raged and quit, you know?
That's what they would have done at this point in the game. They're like, they're only in it for watching Bronn have sex.
Well, we're just in it for titties.
Yeah.
Huh.
That's
Well,
why that's why we watched it, right?
Yeah.
You guys are weird.
You didn't say no.
Yeah. Anything else about this episode?
It was a first episode.
It was a first episode. I'd rather see, This is one of those episodes I wish I could have binge watched all 6 in a row. Like I think that's going to be because everything that happened in this episode I think is just going to hold much more weight once characters start dying, Winterfell's attacked, and this whole series is wrapped up. But it's hard to judge just after this one episode. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah. We'll have to see next week.
All right. Well, if that's all that has to be said, thank you guys for having this Game of Thrones discussion. It was fun. Always talk about Game of Thrones. And for all you out there, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff for more awesome content. You've been listening to this on Nerd Blaze, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye, guys.